Today I'm just giving a brief introduction of Redux and how you should get started with Redux and what are the benefits that you will get if you use Redux in any of your React project, right? So I'm looking forward to start with that one. Okay, so let's start with Redux. So do you have any basic concept what is Redux and all? Okay, welcome everyone. So I was waiting for all of you guys. So seeing you after a long time. So or others to join. So I will start right away. So as I said, probably in the last week, I have given a learning template, but I have asked all of you to start with Redux, right? So what is Redux? Anyone has any basic understanding what is Redux and why we should, so why many people talk about Redux, so why they integrate Redux in any React application. So anyone has any brief idea what is Redux and why we should use, why we should care about it? Yeah, not a data storage, I would say. Shomik, as you said, it is a data storage, but it is not something like a database. Yes, we store some sort of data which we can quickly access. Building UI. Okay, so building UI, we have React, right? So for that, we use the React components. Why it is used for, and what are the alternatives of Redux? Any other option? Use context. Okay, Shomik, so this is another option, but context is something which is you should not mix those two concepts. So context is something which I will come later on, but yes, you can use context to store some sort of data. Okay, but but the fundamental concept of context and Redux is totally different. Okay, Abhishekta is saying is Mobx is an alternative for Redux, and also Facebook use another thing. It's called Flux. They use Flux to do the similar thing what we do with Redux. Okay, so I have got, I think, got inputs from all of you guys. So I will not waste much time. So Redux is something which we should, it represents the state of our React application, right? So the state means what kind of data we will visualize on our UI. Okay, so means we are building UIs using the React components, right? But the UIs are dumb, right? So if you give means static values, in that case UIs are dumb. So in order to make the UIs smart, you have to push some data, right? So from where the data will come, the data will come from the state, means whatever data we see on the screen, means if I would visit one website, say if I'm visiting Facebook, so whatever data I'm seeing, whether it is the news feed or it is the friend list who are online, and whatever data I'm seeing, or the photos or video feeds and the marketplace, whatever data I see, it is representing the state of the application. Okay, so the current state of the application, to show the current state of the application, we need to have some sort of store where from where we will keep the data. Okay, so as some of you have said, say Redux is for data storage. To some extent it is correct. So we store whatever data people are viewing on the screen, so that data is stored in somewhere, some sort of store. Okay, so it is not a persistent storage, but it is a in-memory storage. So whether you are on a browser, so if you would refresh the page, the data will go. Okay, means it will not exhibit, it will not persist. All right, so Redux is something which we use to do the state management. Okay, so it is a state management library. And another misconception is there that we should whenever we talk about Redux, and we think that Redux can be only used with React, but that is actually not true. It is a myth. So Redux can be used with any other framework like Angular, Vue. Okay, means the application state will be there. So what people are visualizing in the application. Okay, so to manage that state, we need Redux. whatever people visualize in our application, that represents the state of the application. Okay, so we manage the state using Redux. So this is an definition that you can say, or it is a yes. Okay, anyone has any confusion? Okay, so some of you have saying whether the GraphQL is an alternative to Redux. So I would say GraphQL is not an alternative to Redux. It is something which is way more different. So GraphQL is a technology that is actually, again, it is built by Facebook. So they use the technology. Say you have multiple API endpoints. Okay, so say in your React application, say in your final year project, you are building one Node.js application and one React application, right? That means your React application is consuming data from only one single Node.js application. So in that case, GraphQL will not be that much helpful, or it would be over engineering if you implement GraphQL here. But now imagine you have 5 different sources of data. So say you have 3 servers deployed in Node.js, one server developed and deployed in PHP, another server is in Ruby on Rails or Java. So in that case, so and if your React application has to pull data from all the 5 different sources and compile and show in one single UI, in that case, if you make 5 different API calls and combine the results together, it will become a little bit difficult to manipulate that kind of huge different kind of data, right? In that case, GraphQL comes to aid. What it does, it calculates data from all the 5 sources. It creates a schema of data, okay, and it gives that one single piece of data to the UI. So this is one broad concept, or is a simple concept you can understand. That is what GraphQL does. So GraphQL is, as per technology goes, it is way more different than the purpose. Means the purpose is also different if I consider GraphQL and Redux together, right? So Redux is a simple state management library that we will use in our React application. So if you are going to work in any live projects, there we will also see that they are using Redux to manage the application's state. And the thing with Redux is that initially it is difficult to understand or learn. Okay, maybe I will give you a brief introduction today, but it is possible that with that introduction also, you might not be able to connect. Hence, Redux needs more practice. So more you practice with Redux, more you implement its state management logic in your applications. So you will become an expert in that area. All right. So that is why uh, I'm saying, so Redux is not going to be an easy one. It is going to be a little bit a moderate topic for all of you if you have just started with React. Okay, so that's it. I think that is a brief introduction of Redux. The tone is set for today. Okay, so let's start with the session. So are you excited to start coding with Redux? Then hit excited on the chat. Are you excited to start with Redux? So know what is Redux, right? Okay, so let's start today's session on Redux. As I said, I think I have already given a brief introduction. So it is the same thing, it is written here. So Redux is used mostly for applications state management. Means what is state? State means the kind of data that we are viewing in UI, or the state means the application's current state, you can imagine, or something like that. All right. Redux maintain the state of an entire application in a single immutable state tree, which cannot be changed directly. Okay, so this is something you can take a note for this one, or maybe you will get a recording. So there, from there also you can refer to this one. So in this statement, what it is saying is that Redux maintains the state of an entire application in a single immutable state tree. Means the state of entire React application. So whatever UI component you have, okay, so the state of entire components, okay, will be stored in a single object. Okay, means it is in the tree structure. Like what I have shown you one example of a tree structure in the React components, right? So I have given the example of LinkedIn where there is a navbar, then there is a news feed. Inside news feed there are postcards. So inside every card there is an option to like, comment. So this is a tree structure, right? So I have given the diagram. Do you remember? Do you remember that part? So the tree structure. Similarly, the similar tree structure is there in case of Redux also. Okay, but the thing is that you cannot mutate the data. Okay, means it cannot be changed directly. There's something special that you have to do, which we will find out today. All right. So the next thing is that when something changes, a new object gets created. Okay, so means say you want to change some sort of a data. Say you want to this, as I said, this is a tree structure, and you want to change one simple node. So one single node of that tree. So how that will happen? So in that case, what will happen if the data changes? If the leaf node changes, a new object get created. So whole state tree object will get created and it will be replaced. Okay. So how we would do that? For that we will use actions. So what action does? Actions, it allows us to change the data. Okay, but not directly, but by creating a new object instead. All right, understood? Next thing is that we have one Redux Dev Tools. Okay, so that I will show you. This is a Chrome extension, so which you can install in your Chrome browser. So what we will do in the developer console, you will get one Redux tab. So there you will be able to visualize what are the state objects, means what are the data that are present in my state. All right. So this is a brief few points, 4 5 points, 4 points are there. This is about something about Redux, and we will, when we will do hands-on, then you will get a better understanding of everything, right? Okay, so this is a flow chart. For now, what I will do is that I will just give a brief. Maybe you no need to understand everything. Uh, okay, so can you see this store section, this part? This is the whole Redux thing I'm talking about. The store means is that our application store or the state store, something like that, what I'm referring. And these components like dispatcher, reducer, state, these are all inside the store. Okay. So view is something which is people are viewing. Okay, it is people, what people are visualizing. It is the React components. Okay, so the view layer is built using the React components that we have, right? Then there are actions. What I said, if you want to change any data, in that case you need actions. All right, and there is, of course, there is some sort of API. In case say you are building the Node.js API, the APIs are there. So from where we will get all the dynamic data, right? So from there we will read data, we will write data, means we will perform all the CRUD operations. So for that only I said you to create the CRUD API first, because we need, if we are going to implement Redux, so in that case we need those APIs. All right, so this is a broad concept. So you have a store, okay, that is managed by Redux. You have a view layer. View layer is managed by the React, and there are actions. Actions are not, are pure functions, just JavaScript functions, which we will write to change any data in this application store. Understood? This is a broad concept. Maybe so you will understand it more when we will do hands-on. So fine, I think it is time to start the coding session. Okay, so what we will do is that, so we will create one application, say first Redux app. All right, so I'm creating a blank application here. So it will take some time to set up. So in the meantime, we will go to Redux website, redux.js.org. To use Redux, we need to add some packages. So we will add those packages straight away right now. So they are saying you add Redux. So yes, it is done. We will go to our first Redux application. Here we will install Redux. Then there are a few other packages that are required, like React Redux. It is a package that we will use to use the use the Redux inside our React applications. Okay, so then there are another packages that is called Redux Thunk. So what is Redux Thunk? I will talk about later. So, and another thing is that one extension is required, as I said, Redux Dev Tools extension. This is something, it is a counterpart of the Chrome extension that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. So Chrome Web Store, if you go to Chrome Web Store, there you will get the extension here, Redux Dev Tools. Okay, so you can install this thing, and then the later stage, what you have to do, you have to add this npm library to your application. So 4 libraries are important: Redux, React Redux, Redux Thunk, and the Redux Dev Tools extension. Okay, so I would install these packages. Wait for a minute. It's done. Okay, so let's start our application. Okay, so application started. Let's open the code in browser. So as I mentioned, so here we will create few folders. So first, say I will create one folder called Redux. So inside that we'll create one file called store.js. So inside this store.js file, so here we will import few basic files from the Redux packages. Okay, so first we will take create store. As you can see, it is coming in autocomplete. Create store from Redux. Okay, so there we will take few other packages called combine reducers. Another package is required for, say, apply middleware. I think it is visible. Okay, so these 3 packages are imported, and the Redux Dev Tool extension that we will import too. So for that, compose with DevTools is something which we'll import from Redux DevTools extension. Then we will use the Thunk that I will talk about later. So these are the things that you have to do for first time only. So this is something which is not required every time you write API. It is not required. This is a one-time setup. Okay, this is it. So these are the 3 extensions or packages we require right now. So now what we will do is that we will create our store here. So for that we will export our store. So for that we will use the create store function. So what create store function takes is that here we will add the reducers. So what is a reducer? So that I will talk later on. Okay, but I think before that only I should talk about reducers. Wait for a minute. Let me open their document. Yes. Okay. So there are a few fundamental concepts in Redux that you should know. Okay. Yes. Okay, great. So what is a reducer? Say in our application, say if you consider, give me one example, say pharmacy application. So now the root application state can have multiple piece of data, right? So say there is a product listing, that data is there. There is a customer listing, customer information data is there. So we should not mix those things. So now if you consider, just for imagination, if you consider a Redux store as a database, now you can consider these reducers as a table. Okay, so as a table for your database. Understood? Just for concept wise, I'm just saying. Okay, so reducers is something which is a pure function. Okay, that has access to the root state, means the root database, and it takes the actions. What I said, actions means something which you can use to change the state value. Okay, and then Reducer is something, it has access to the root state, means the root application state, and if you pass it some action to the reducer, say one reducer, then you can change that value of that. Say in that table you have some sort of values. Okay, say if you consider reducer as a table, so in that table you have some sort of values and you can update those values. So in that case you can consider the action as a SQL query. Say you are updating 100 records at once. Okay, so you can consider the action as a SQL query, so which you are executing to update the table. Okay, so what reducer does, after updating its own table, it updates the database. So that's something that does not happen in case of a database, but here in case of reducer it happens. Okay, so say you have 10 different reducers. Say one reducer is managing product listing, one reducer is managing the user account, one reducer is managing the orders. Okay, so if you change anything in, say, inside the product reducer, it will update the root state. Okay, so it will send the update to the root state. If you change something in the uh, account reducer, it will send the update to the root state. So reducers are simple functions, okay, that has access to state, and it allows us to change the state using the actions, different purpose. So when I will apply the reducer in action, then you will understand it more, right? So for that, I think it is better to start the implementation, so you will get a broad idea here. Okay, so here what this combine reducer function does, say as I said, our application can have more than one reducer, right? Reducers are something which is, you can say, it is a piece of state. So in that case, say we can write all our reducers here, but right now we don't have any, so we can leave it blank for now. And as I said, as I have this extension installed in my Chrome browser, so in that case I will enable our application to be debugged. So this is something which will enable our application to be debugged using the Chrome Dev Tools extension. So for that we will use the function Chrome Dev Tools extension. So there we will pass few values. First thing is that the apply middleware, and then there we will pass the thunk. So what is middleware, what is thunk, I will talk about later, because it will not make any sense if I tell you right now. Okay, so our store is ready. So these are the few basic imports that you have to do. Then you have to call this create store functions. Inside that we have these combined reducers where we will write our multiple reducers, and there is a compose with DevTools options, means we are enabling our Redux application or the Redux store to be debugged using the Chrome DevTools extension. And there I'm passing some values which I will talk about later. So what is middleware and what is thunk, that I will talk about later on. All right, so till this part, anyone has any confusion? Even if you have confusion, I will clarify it later on. Okay, so let's head on to the index.js file. So there what we will do is that we will do some basic import here also. So what we will do is that we'll import uh, provider from React Redux. Okay, what provider does, so we have created this store.js file. Okay, but this file is not included yet in our application, right? So what provider does, so as you can see, the provider comes from the React Redux library. So React Redux is a library that enables Redux in a React application. So what provider does, it allows us to bind this store that we have just created right now here. It allows us to bind this store with our React application. Okay, so here we will do in the root level, we will add this provider here. So whatever comes in React, so everything will be wrapped around by this provider. It takes one argument called store. So there we have to pass our store. For that we will import our store here that we have just created. Import store from /redux, then store, right? So we will pass this store variable here like this. I would save the file. Okay, that's it. So our React application is now connected with the Redux store. Okay, so let's move on to the browser and let's see. Okay, so I think there is a mistake that I have made. Oh, sorry. I think it is from Redux thumb. Yes, yes, loaded properly. So now, as I said, I will go to inspect, and there I think I have one error here. Store does not have a valid reducer. Okay, so here you can see there is a Redux tab that is coming properly. So I have the extension installed in my Chrome, and I have enabled my application to be debugged using this extension. That's why you will see that one Redux tab is coming here. Inside that there is an option called state. Here we will be able to see all the state values. So right now we have nothing in our state. That's why it is coming empty. Okay, so till that part, if it is ready, then I will move forward. So what it is asking, so what I'm getting one error. It is saying your store does not have a valid reducer. Make sure the argument passed to command reducer is an object whose values are reducers. Means it is expecting some sort of reducers that we should write here. Okay, means it is expecting, means our root state is now empty. It is expecting some sort of values or some reducer that we should pass here. In that case it would be able to generate that state, okay, in the application state. Okay, so we will start with the implementation. For that, what we will do is that inside this Redux we will create one folder. So we will call it, I would name it as, say, modules. Okay, so and I will create one folder here, another folder in the root src directory that is called say routes. So what we will do is that whatever view comes, so whatever routes we will visualize, we will keep the React components here, and we will keep all the logic to fetch data and storing it in Redux. We will keep it in this Redux folders. These are the two root folder that I have created inside SRC. One is Redux, another is route. So what we will do in this application is that, so I have one API for from JSON placeholder. They have one. Okay, so let's use this API. This is a more real API. That is a remote API. So I think that will work. So it is from the JSON placeholder. So this is a sample API I'm sharing with all of you. You can check, save this URL. So there will get some fake API endpoints here, which you can use. Okay. So, okay, so we will use this API only. All right, so we will list down all the posts, and I think it will work if I would search with one single post. Yes, it is working. So we will list down all posts, and then if some user clicks one on any single post, we will show the details. Okay, so to do that, in order to do that, make the API call, so we have to create the reducer first. So in that case, we have, let's get started to create our first reducer. Okay, so in order to do that, we will create one folder inside this modules. So let's call it, say, here the module name is something, say, posts. Okay, so what this post module will do, so here we will keep all our, we will define our post reducer, and we will define all the actions that are required to change data in that post reducer. Fine, understood. Okay, so here inside post we'll create one file. So we will create another two folder called say actions, another folder called reducers. Okay, and we will create one single file called constants.js. Okay, these are the few, this is the folder structure that you can follow. Actually what happens whenever we work on large scale application in our organization. So in that case, we use this folder structure to better manage the components and the reducer files and the actions. Okay, because what happens when the project grows, so your number of reducers and action will grow along with that. Okay, so if you manage this folder structure, it will be easier for you to manage these things. Okay, similarly, say there is a post module. Similarly, say in this API, there is another module called albums or photos. Okay, so if you pick the albums module, so in that case, you will create another folder called albums. Okay, and inside that, you will create two folders called actions. Another thing is that is reducers. Okay, so this is something like that you would create. So for now we will use this post reducer. Okay, so for that, as I have mentioned, is that I have created one reducers folder. Inside that we will define one reducer called, say, posts reducer.js. Fine, posts reducer .js. Okay, so inside that we will define our reducer here. Okay, so we will define our posts reducer. To do that, we would write the function. We'll say, as I said in the definition, that a reducer is a simple function, okay, that has access to the state, and it takes actions which will change that reducer's value. Okay, so let's see it in action. Okay, so export, so function, say function name, let's give it as post reducer. So here we define one state value, and then so state means for this time action. Okay, so inside that we would write a switch case here, a switch case. So just I will explain everything. Just stay with me right now. Say in our post reducer, here we can, what we can do is that we can define the initial values. So what this argument takes, it defines the initial values in the post reducer. Say if I want to fetch all of the proposed, and if I want to save in some sort of variable, so in that case, say I would name it as all. Okay, so I would name it as all, and I will keep the default value as an empty array, because whenever the actual values will come from the API, I will push the values here inside this inside this all variable. Okay, so here is all, and say I am defining another variable called is fetching. Say I want to show some sort of a loader whenever the request will go, whether it is a loading or something like that. Okay, so so for that, say whenever we would fetch the product, so whenever we will fetch the product, we will set this is fetching to true. This is something which we will do to change the value. Say I have the whole state. So whenever we are fetching product, I am not setting any values for all. I'm just only fetching the is fetching property. I'm only changing the is fetching property. For that, I have used this spread operator. I'm saying is that I'm in the state. I want to only change the is fetching property. I want to set it to the true. Okay, and so in case there are this thing is done, and as per the switch case goes, we have to give one default value here. That is, for that I would give default. So by default I would return state here, and I will export this function, export function post reducer. This is the initial value of my state, and this it takes one argument called action. So now what is action? As I said, action is something which you will use to change the values inside your state. Okay, so action has two things. The first thing is the type. Okay, so action has type, action has type, and it also has a payload. So I'm just writing it here. So action has type and action has payload. Means what kind of action I'm performing. Okay, so I'm writing a switch case here. So I'm saying check my action type, whether the action type is fetch product. So this is something which we have not defined yet, but we will define it later on. We will see. So instead of fetch product, it will be say fetch posts, right? As it is a post reducer. So fetch post, if the action type is fetch post, then you set inside this state variable, you set the is fetching to true, which is by default it is false, but you set the is fetching to true. Okay, so that is it. So now let's do one thing. Let's connect this post reducer inside our store. To do that, I would import the posts reducer. As you can see, it is doing that autocomplete. So posts reducer from the module post reducer, it is taking it. So I will use this function here. So in general, inside our application state, we will call it as post. There we will pass the function post reducer. So I would save the file, and let's go to the browser and check whether it is working. It is working. If I go to the Redux state, as you can see, the state is coming. So the state got initialized. So there is a variable called all, and there is something called is fetching, means whether the fetching is some sort of fetching is happening or not. So as I said, the default values are there. So by default, as I said, the all posts are null right now. Here inside the post has no value, so it is an empty array, and is fetching is set to false. We can change the values here. You will see it will change it immediately here. As is fetching is true, so as I have defined the default value as true. Okay, you can define anything here. All right, this is something which is your reducer. Okay, so now let's do one thing. Let's create our UI first, because without UI everything looks dumb here. In order to do that, in order to create our UI, we will go to the views folder. So we will stop in development in this Redux folder for right now. So we'll go to view routes. Inside that, we will create say folder, new folders, say post, and we can also create folders for say albums, as I said earlier. So inside post, we will create one file called index.jsx. So this is our simple React component. Okay. So have you used, anyone used the React router previously? Here we will make use of React router. Anyone used React router? Yes. Okay. So one has used. React router is something I think you should also use this one. This is used for routing purposes. Okay, means say you have different paths in your application. Like if you consider say this one also only, this reactrouter.com has different paths, say web, guides, quick start. So how you build this path? For that you should have React router in your application. Okay, so to get started, you have to do the installation using yarn, say yarn install react router DOM. So we will install this package here. Let's stop the project. Yarn add react router DOM. Okay. Okay. So inside this inside this index.jsx file, we will import the route component from the react router DOM, that one. Okay. So that is it. And here I will define a simple component, say const posts equals, it has access to props. I would define it as an arrow function, which would return something called say posts. Okay, say inside a header tag. Let's export this constant here, post. Okay, so let's add this route inside our app.js file. So for that, you go to the app.js file. So here you do one thing. What you can do is that you can remove everything from here, import the posts from routes, as I said. Okay, so here also what we will do is that we will make use of the React, sorry, we'll make use of the React router DOM, and from the React router DOM we will install we'll use few packages here. Just a minute, I have to receive one phone call. So I have imported these three things: browser router as router from and a route. These two things I have imported from React router. So if you have not used React router previously, then I think that is fine. So you just you can go through their documentation, and you will get the idea how to define the routes and how you can use it in your project. Okay, so in the root level, I have used this router. So inside the router, we have to define different routes. So how to define different routes? Say say if, so say here I will define one single route here. So now say if the routes path, so means whatever path we have in our URL, if the path is only one single slash, in that case I would like to import, I would like to render the posts component. Okay, and I can do another thing is that is it, the post component will render if our path is slash. Okay, now let's go back to our browser. Let's check. Okay, so server stop, I have not started yet. Yarn start. Yes, as you can see, the post is coming. So here you can see I have defined our router. Inside that I have defined one route. Okay, if the path is slash only, in that case I would render posts. But similarly, if my route says, if my route is say posts, in that case also I would like to render the post, again the same component. Okay, so let's see if I would give this route, what comes. Again the post thing comes here. All right, so this is the initialization phase. So where I have defined my initial root route. Here inside this posts folder, say I will again make use of these route folder, sorry, the route variable that I have imported, or the route function or the route component that I have imported from this React router DOM. So from here I will use this to define two different other routes. Okay, so the first route would be, again I would copy this thing from here, from my app.js. I will copy this part. Okay, so another thing, just stay with me. I would import here, that is match. So I think a lot of things that I think you will find it in the tutorial that I have given, or if it is new, then I will explain. Just wait. If it matches the URL, then you render import list post from dot slash. Okay, so I have not created this file yet, and in other case show post. Okay, so I will create one folder called components. Okay, so I will take it from the components folder. Okay, so a lot of danger code is going on, so stay with me. So I will define the routes here. Okay, what I will do is that again inside this file, what I am saying is that, oh, okay, so as you can see, whenever an application loads, it is loading this component. So inside this component means this file is getting rendered, this post file, component file. So inside that I'm saying, if the path is whatever we have right now, so for by default I would list all of the post. If this route comes, whether it is a slash only the root route, or it is a slash posts route, for these two routes I will show a list of product. But in case I get a product ID, say like posts slash one or something like that, in that case I would show something different. Okay, so here I would mention that a route for that one also. So in that case I have to show one different component, right? So in that case I cannot show the list of posts, either rather I have to show the details of a post. In that case I would just define the route, say if inside route I have a post ID, you render this show post. Okay, show post. In that case you define this show post component. Okay, these are the two components that we will build right now. So first thing is the list products. So let's create a blank one for now. Const list products equals props and arrow function, return something, say h2 listing products, export a default list posts, sorry, again posts. And I will create one file here called show.js, sorry, jsx. Here what I will do, I will just I would create a simple component here, say const post details. It has access to the props, return say h4 post details, export default post details. Okay, so these are the few basic components that I have created. Now I would save this file. So let's check whether our routes are working or not. Okay, so now it is saying no such file or directory. Show.jsx. Show.jsx is there. Show post, list post. I think the component inside that. We will change it. Not a. Let me restart the application. I think for that it will work. Yes. So as you can see, if I would change the route, it is showing the listing post. Okay, that means this part is rendering. That means this part is rendering, listing all post. It is rendering from this component. And if I would give some sort of random ID or anything like that, it is showing post details. That means it is no longer rendering this list of posts. Rather, it is rendering the post details component. So is this is a simple routing. So this is a again it is a routing class. It is happening. Okay, so I think we are away from the Redux session. So is this helpful, the routing session, how we should route our components in large applications? This is something, a format that we should follow. Is it helpful, the routing part? Or I think you need more clarity on that. So again, maybe we will do another session for the route part. I will show you. Okay, so now what we will do is that inside this list post component, from here, okay, we have to make the API call, right? Say whenever the user would be on this page, say slash posts, here we will make an API call to this JSON placeholder service, this one. Okay, so let's do that. So I think we don't have much time left, so let's jump into this section, this implementation. All right, the chat is, I think it is not visible. Yes, it is visible right now. Okay, so in order to make a network call, we have to use one hook. So which hook we should use to make a network call? So any suggestion from all of you? Last session I have taken on hooks. Any suggestion which hook I should use to, okay, yes, so make you are correct. We should use this use effect hook. So use effect hook is something which gives us some life cycle related behavior. Okay, so we can use this use effect hook inside our component. It takes an arrow function as an argument. So here I will define one arrow function. So inside that I will make our network call here. So console, so make network call. Okay, and I want to load it one time only. So let's see whether this make network call is coming in the browser. Sorry, console.log. Silly mistakes. Yes, the make network call is coming. That means the hook is working. So now I would import few other hooks from the Redux React Redux that package. Okay, that one hook could be use dispatch. Another hook could be use selector. Okay, what are the these two hooks? I will talk about that later on. Okay, so in order to make a network call, we have to we have to write a logic for network call. A network call is something which takes time. In that case, it has to be asynchronous, right? Async. It has to be asynchronous, right? And the third thing is that after making the network call, we have to pass the data to Redux, right? Then the fourth step would be read the Redux values, read from Redux store, right? These are the four steps that we have to follow. First, we have to write a logic for the network call. Second, it has to be asynchronous, whatever action that we will perform. Third, we have whatever data we get from the network call, we have to pass the data to the Redux. Okay, then the fourth thing is that not only passing data to the Redux will work, then we have to read the data from the Redux store to our application, right? So this is it. Let's dive into the implementation. So first we will write our logic for the network call. So we will do two things at once. First thing would be to make the network call. So network call, first thing would be to make the network call plus the pass data to Redux. These two things we can do inside actions. Okay, so do that. So what I am saying, we will write one action. In that action, we will make the network call. Along with that, we will pass the data, whatever we'll get from the network call, we'll pass the data to the Redux store. Understood? So this is the step one. So along with that, we will also handle this async logic here. network call plus async plus pass data to the Redux. So this all of the three things will happen in the step one. So one single file will do that. So for that we will define one action here. So ready? So is it makes sense? Step one, write logic for a network call. Step two, read data from the Redux store. It makes sense? Then type makes sense in the chat. Let me get some water. It makes sense. Okay, so I think now we should move on to the Redux folder. So our work on this React component is done for now. Let's move on to the Redux folder. Here inside the modules, you will see inside module we have one posts folder. Inside that we have one actions folder. What we can do is that what we will do is that we will write one action. So for that we would name it as fetch posts.js. This is one action that we would define here. Okay, so fetch post. To make a network call, we need another library called Axios. So I would add that yarn add Axios. Axios is required to make the network call. So there are other libraries are there. So I prefer Axios as it is easy to use and the customization options are a lot. So yes, so Axios is imported. Application is running. So let's import the Axios first. This is required to make the network call. So import Axios from Axios. Done. Now, what we will do is that we will write one function. Function, say fetch. This is a pure function which would fetch the post. Okay. So now in next few line, I would write some code which I think may not makes any sense to you right now, but stay with me. I will explain once I write completing. Okay, so return a function called return a function named say fetch. Here I have access to dispatch. Now here I will dispatch one action with type say posts fetch request. Okay, this is something. Next, I would use Axios to get one resource. Say, what is our resource here? Let's check our browser. Yes, this one. Yes, this URL is something which I would copy for now. Axios.get. Here, this is a simple string. This one. Okay, what Axios does, it gives us a promise. So if I'm fetching this data, I'm making the API call, then it gives us as a promise. Okay, so using that promise, we can get access to the response that I would receive. Okay, so I would use this response. I would dispatch another action. Its type would be say posts fetch success, and there would be a payload. Okay, so we remember one thing I mentioned here. Okay, maybe I removed it. Every action has two things. One is the type, another is a payload. Okay, you can see here whenever I'm dispatching something, so what is dispatch? I will talk about that later. So whenever I'm dispatching something, I'm giving a type and I'm mentioning one payload. Okay, so in type, I'm just giving a simple string, and in payload is something where I would pass all the data. So in that case, I would say response.data. So whatever data I have received from the API call, I will pass it inside this payload. Okay, now there should be a catch. Say in case there is an error, whether it can be a network error or it can be an internal server error. In those cases, so I have to log those errors, console log error, whatever we have received. And then also we can dispatch another action, say post fetch failure. Okay, in that case, I can inside this payload, I can pass the error values. Okay, so as this file has only one single function, I would export it straight away. Export default function fetch post. Okay, this part is complete. So our action creator. So this function is something which is called an action creator. Okay, and it is a action creator. So the folder name may be actions because we have multiple actions here, but this function is called a action creator. Okay, so you can write it here. Fetch post is a action creator, is an action creator. Okay, so here inside that I have an option. So I have one access to one special thing which is called dispatch. Dispatch is something which is coming from a middleware. What is a middleware? So as you can see here, inside this our primary root folder, sorry, the root the store, here I have applied one middleware called thunk. Thunk is something which allows us to tap all the network calls. It allows us to send it allows us to modify the Redux store asynchronously. Means it is a middleware which taps those requests in the middle. Okay, it allows us to change the state in different level. Okay, so here in this action creator, as you can see here, we have a three different dispatch. So why I have three different dispatch, I will show you straight right now. Okay, so here I am dispatching one action. So this is something is called action. So this one is an action. Okay, this is not an action, this is an action creator. This is one action, this fetch request, this sorry, product fetch request, uh, product fetch success, product fetch failure. These are all actions. Okay, so what I'm doing is that from this action creator function named fetch products, I am dispatching multiple actions. After dispatching these actions, I will catch those actions inside this reducer file. So as you can see here, I am dispatching one action called posts fetch request. So in that case, in that case, I will rename it here straight away. If the case the action type is post fetch request, in that case, I would set this is fetching to false. So here I would add another variable called error. So error is by default, I would say null. Okay. So similarly, what we'll just copy this to thing. I will just paste it here. Two times I would paste it because I will write two different cases here. Okay, let's close these files for now. So first, whenever I'm fetching the post, I am making the is fetching variable true. Okay, whenever the success happens, means the successfully the response came from the server. In that case, I would change the is fetching to false because I don't want to show the loader any longer. So in that case, I will set these values. Okay, so I will set the value for all this variable, whatever I have defined here. So previously it was an empty array, but what is happening in the payload, I am passing all data. So I will, whatever values is coming in the payload, I will assign it straight away. So how I would access that? I have access to this action, this thing, say action dot payload. Okay, so I'm assigning the value. Similarly, if the request has some sort of a problem, in that case, if it gets this failure, what I will do that in case of failure, so is fetching will be false, and error would be something like that. Whatever comes in that action payload means, as you can see, we have passed the error message here inside the payload. Okay, so we will set the error value to this thing. Understood? What I am whatever I am dispatching, I am catching those things here. Does it make sense? This is important. This is important to understand. Whatever I'm dispatching, I'm catching those values here. Others, Breath is saying makes sense. Okay, okay. So this is a very important session, guys, everyone, because you can take the recording for this one. I think Stephen will show you in his tutorial also, maybe a similar thing. Okay, so whatever I am dispatching here, I'm catching those values here. Now let's go back to my browser and let's see whether our application is crashing or it is showing some sort of value. Let's go to the Redux store. As you can see, okay, as you can see, the default values are coming straight away here. Okay, so now it's time to make the network call, actual network call here. So I will again go back to my routes folder. Inside this post component, I have these console logs, which I will remove here. Okay, so here what I will do is that I would import those files. I would import this fetch post from the modules which I have defined right now. So import fetch posts from slash, where is it, Redux, from Redux, no, from Redux modules, posts, actions, fetch post. Yes, I got it. So it is ready. It is ready. So now our application is ready to make the network call. So for that, we will use this hook. So we will use this use dispatch hook that is coming from this React Redux. Okay, so what this hook does, let's implement it, then we will know const dispatch. So let's define one constant here, which will use this hook. Okay, so what I will do is that we will dispatch one action here. We will dispatch the sorry, it would be, I think, fetch post, because that was a default export there. Yes, I would dispatch this fetch posts here. Okay, so I'm making the network call from here. So let's see, let's go back to the browser and refresh. And as you can see, the network call is happening. The response is coming, more than 100 records. So 100 records are coming, to be exact. Okay, it has the body, title, everything is there. Understood? And as you can see, there we have all the posts in our state. So is fetching is set to false and all data is there. Understood? Our state is working. Whatever reducer we have defined, the posts reducer, it is working as expected. Okay, now there is a cool option. Okay, so which you can see here, which you can see here. So in the left hand side, you can see which actions are dispatched and when. You can see the order. Okay, so initially this was the state, all is empty, is fetching is false, error is null. So now when the request initiated, this means we are dispatching this post fetch request. In that case, if I would jump to this one, if I would jump to this one, if I jump to this one, as you can see, the data changed to is fetching is true. And if I would jump to this one, post fetch success, in that case, you would see all the values. So this is a great tool which you can use to debug how your state values are changing. So is the tool powerful, guys? So we are at the very end where we have 5 minutes left. Till that time, we have to sum up today's session. Is it powerful? Is the tool powerful, guys? Yes. Okay, great. Now, okay, fine. So next thing is that, which we will do is that, just a minute. Wait for a minute. Okay, so our products is ready. So that means API call is working. Now what we have to do is that we have to print those values. Okay, so our Redux state has the data. So as I have mentioned here inside this, so our part one is ready, means the network call, async, pass data to the Redux, is this part is ready. So now we have to read data from the Redux. To do that, again, I will go back to this reducer file. What we will do that, we will, to read the data, we will define some selectors. What selector does, it selects the values from the state it gives us. Okay, so I would write export const, say get all posts. It has access to the state. From the state, this is something, it is a root state I'm referring here. Root state means the whatever state is here in our application. So in the root state, we have the posts inside this posts variable. Okay, inside this posts variable or the posts property. So from the root state, I will take this posts. So once I get this till this part, means I got access to this variable, this whole variable, and from that I only want this all, means I want all post. Okay, similarly I will define another selector, say is fetching posts. In that case, I will take this is fetching variable. Sorry, done. These are all selectors. Next, I will go back to the posts once again. So here we will go back to our posts once again. So what we will do that here I will define two other constants, say posts equals, we will use this use selector method. In that use selector, we will call these two functions that we have defined just now. Okay, so but to do that, first we have to import those values here. So say import get all posts, and another thing is that is fetching posts. Okay, so we will take those values from dot dot slash Redux modules posts. Inside reducers, we have the post reducers, a long a long path. Okay, so what I will do is that we will pass this value, this selector that we have defined here, we will pass it here. Okay, so we are using the selector that we have defined here. Okay, so if once using that, our this post variable will get the access to the Redux store data. Similarly, I would define one method called is fetching. Similarly, we will do that is fetching posts. We will pass that and we will get the values. Okay, so now it is done. Now let's see if is fetching, say return, say a loading state, right? But if there is some sort of value, then I would like to show one section. For now, I'm just using on simple HTML components. or HTML properties. Okay, so what we will do that we will map through those uh, posts dot map return. So we will move this section here, return a section. Okay, so inside every post we have the h2, we have the post, I think title is there. Yes, post title and body, these two things are there. Post title is there. Similarly, we have the paragraph tag we will use for the body section. All right, so let's save this file. Let's see whether it works. Yes, yes, it is working, guys. We have selected the values properly. So once the thing is so fast, you cannot see the loading state. The network call is happening so fast. So let's throttle it a bit. So let's test it in slow 3G. Let's see how it works. Oh, it's too slow now. Okay, so the loading state is not coming for some reason. If is fetching is true, then it should show this loading state. Let's console log this value. Let's check it in fast 3G. Okay, so it is not giving any output. Okay, if is fetching, then loading. Oh, sorry. There should be a return statement. There should be a return statement. Yes, fine now. There is a loading state whenever data, we are fetching the data, and there is a, when the data is coming, it is printing out here properly. All right, so I think it is time's up already, 1 hour 30 minutes. So that is it. Maybe I will, so whenever I will upload the video, so maybe there I will add these recording for the route section that I have mentioned, means how we will use the show thing to show another. So if I would go to this posts slash id something like that, there we will show the post detail or something like that. How we will do that, I will show it in another video maybe. All right, so was the session helpful, guys, to everyone to understand Redux? Maybe there are some gray area, but this is the introduction. Maybe you have to go through the course that I have given, and there is a lot for you to find out. Okay, fine. So that's it. I think that's it. So stay prepared for the submission, final submission, as you have promised me. All right, so give your 110%, 20%, whatever you have, and let's make it a success. Right, so try to submit the first version of your application by this Friday. So this is this is going to be a tough week, I guess. Right, so great. Thank you for joining the session.